target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. It's Friday night. It's Good Friday. For those of you that are not in Good Friday services, I appreciate you coming in and watching. And for those of you that are in Good Friday services right now, why are you on here watching? Shame on you. Anyway, you guys know the deal. Thanks for coming to Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so now. It drives up the algorithm so that more people see my stuff. And, you know, I have a lot of important things to say. So everybody needs to tune in. And then there's a little bell icon down there somewhere that you can hit. Make sure that you are getting notifications when the content comes out, especially this live stuff. The live stuff is actually more entertaining, I think. I haven't put out a raw video in quite a while. So make sure you are subscribed and getting notifications. Check out the merch. The directions for ordering are down below. TC Pearson at protonmail.com if you want to email me to get prices on everything from coffee to mugs. Nice little keychains. These are new from Kim and his wife. They make those. I really like these. I have a plan for these. So these are fun. So check them out. And also remember that we have the 22-0 challenge going on. For every bag of coffee and piece of merchandise that I sell, we are going to be donating a certain amount of the proceeds to the 22-0 guys over there fighting veteran suicide. They are doing what the federal government and the VA are not doing. They seem to be pretty much refusing to do. My friend Larry is watching. He's 70% disabled, and they basically told him they can't do anything for him because he makes too much money. And the only thing they can do is help him find ways to make more money. That's your federal state in action, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, make sure you are buying some merchandise between now and the end of April so we can get some money into the hands of the guys at 22-0 so we can maybe save some lives. Buy a plane ticket for a vet who's in crisis, or maybe buy groceries for a single parent vet who's been abandoned by their spouse, or maybe lost their spouse in a combat situation or to suicide. So maybe we can help them out there. I'm excited to bring on Stephen and his wife, Hallie, as in Halle Berry. She reminded me. And then I made a joke that had absolutely nothing to do with Halle Berry because I'm a nerd. And, but we're going to be bringing Stephen and his wife, Hallie, on. Stephen is an accidental candidate for the Senate District 52. He showed up for I believe it was a nominating convention, and no one wanted to step up and take the reins. And trust me, I've met this guy. He just steps in, and that's what he did here. He stepped in, they vetted him, and that's where we're at. So we're going to sit down. We're going to find out what makes him good for Senate District 52 and what's going to make him good for the state of Minnesota. And here we go. Hey guys, thanks for coming on.
It was good, TC. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So we're just going to go ahead and get this right out of the way. Those are not airsoft guns on your wall.
Absolutely not. No.
Oh, okay. Are those real hammers?
Actually, so that in the middle is it is a warhammer. It is made for purpose by what are they called? I think it's Sabersmiths. I bought it at the Renaissance Festival. I was a Renaissance Fest nerd for a long time.
I was gonna say Warhammers Are Us.
Right. And the other guy's that is I think it's a T80 combat hawk. It's a tomahawk. But it can break a cinder block without snapping the pointy end.
It can break a cinder. I don't even want to know.
I watch my demo videos before I buy products. I like to make sure that I'm buying something that actually does what it's
right, because no one can ever fake. No one can ever fake a video.
Probably not, but you know, you got to find some way to get the information. Otherwise, you'll have to. I probably should try it. We'll see if there's support for it. I'll do a video of me seeing if that will shatter a cinder block without snapping the pointy end off of it.
I mean, it's Friday night.
It is Friday night.
Do it on TikTok. Somebody will pay to watch that.
They probably
There's
will.
an
You
idea.
ain't wrong about that.
Yeah.
I'm short cinder blocks though, so I would need a donor cinder block.
You need a cinder block donor. I've seen a lot of people ask for a lot of things on videos. I've never seen anybody ask for somebody to do. I'm pretty sure, if you go down to downtown Minneapolis, there are probably some left from the riots. So
you might be onto something there.
They're probably reinforced though.
Yeah.
Probably, but that's a lesser known thing. Most people don't know that you're like, according to like maybe code. Don't quote me on that part, but according to common practice, you're supposed to fill cinder blocks with liquid or with concrete. You're not supposed to build them hollow, but a lot of companies will just leave them hollow, and you can always tell because you bang on the side of a cinder block wall. If they're hollow, it sounds like you're banging a concrete or a cinder gong.
It sounds hollow. And funny how that works. Yeah. Anyway, so let's get down to the nuts and bolts of this. Everybody just wants to talk to Haley, so you can go ahead and step on out, Steve.
Oh, wow. Been fun. Enjoy, guys.
Oh, so how did you walk into this? This was an amazing occurrence.
I spend a truly incredible amount of time complaining about politicians. I supremely
have no idea what that's like.
Politics. Alien concept, I know. Due to that, I figured, well, since it appears our semi-tyrannical state government has pulled itself back just a hair from the brink.
Semi-tyrannical?
I say so because they weren't able to actually get the boots on the ground. They're definitely tyrannical in intent, but thankfully we haven't had to do anything terribly open in the streets or anything nuts like that. So,
okay,
that kind of thing pulled itself back from the brink long enough for me to assume that there might be purpose in politics. Because of course, if the time for say more than words happens to rear itself, which if history decides that's how it's going to go, there's not a whole lot of choice the individual has. So if that's the case, then it's pointless to talk. But it looks like there might be room still for arguments and words to hold sway. And while that is the case, I would prefer to use words rather than violence. I would prefer to use words rather than any kind of martial show of force that's absolutely unnecessary if you can talk your way out of it. So we've been given the short breath to talk, and I would like to talk personally. And so I was like, well, what do I do? What do I do to seek my representation? I had never participated in politics, didn't know anything about it, aside from reading the philosophy, reading the law, and stuff like that, and being quite the nerd on that, as you can see with the books back here. I have great passion for it, but I didn't know how the apparatus worked. So I asked some questions, and I was like, "Hey, how do I participate in some things?" And I got word in the mail that there was going to be, and this was like a year or so ago, that there was going to be a Republican convention, I think, of some kind, or
nominating convention.
Well, no, not the one that I got nominated at, by the way.
Oh, okay.
This is like a year or so ago. I was like, well, let's see what this is like.
Oh, it's one of the off-year conventions, yeah.
Yeah, one of the off-year conventions, and it was, of course, deader than a doornail. The guy looked at us, because we're sort of younger, and he was like, hey, you sure you weren't looking for the Democrat thing? And I'm like, no. We're here to find the Republicans. don't
Is it my nose ring? It's my nose ring.
You're so no, right. He literally looked at us because we were the only people there. We were the only people that showed up. It was our caucus. Yeah, sorry. We showed up to caucus, and the guy was like, "What? Why are you here?" Like, the world sucks. We'd like to do something about it. Come on. And he was like, "Well, here, sign up." So I signed up, and it was pretty, there wasn't much going on because it was, of course,
so that was pre-2022.
That was pre-2022, and so not a whole lot happened. I got some calls from some people who are now very heavily campaigning, but they were just starting their things then. It was very confusing, and because I was the only one there, I had no other information, so that just kind of settled. Well, I didn't know what redistricting was, and when that happened, I of course continued to show up to the things because there wasn't much BPOU activity at the time. I never got an invite to one, so otherwise I may have been involved sooner. But I went to the soonest one, and I went to the organizing meetings for the redistricting caucus, and then I finally got an invite to a BPOU, and that's where I met what would have been Senate District 51 Republicans, and talked to them a bit. They were, after hearing me talk they were very interested in whether or not I was interested in running for a position. And I was like, run for what? I don't run from anything. What do you want? And, it was very, very, very entertaining. And so when it finally came to the full convention, when we brought the whole Senate district together, A and B, they mentioned that there was no senatorial candidate.
But now that's 52.
And now, now it is the brand new, never before existed Senate District 52. Many of the old parts, but new design.
Okay. And what cities would my Minnesota viewers or other people be familiar with in 52?
So we encompass, I believe, all of Egan, and we also added, because I honestly I still haven't even seen a map yet. It takes time apparently. Some of Mendota Heights, some of Mendota, that's a very small amount. Some of Burnsville, and
4 houses in Lilydale.
Yeah, 4 houses in Lilydale. Just a teeny little bit of West St. Paul. As far as I know. And of course, once I get my hands on a fully minted district map, I would be able to say more.
My friend Larry says, this is his way of apologizing. He says, I'm late. Larry, that's an automatic $5 super chat requirement for anybody that shows up late. So,
I honestly, man, with the kind of folks that have apparently shown up in the past, I'm happy with late. I don't care at this point.
Wait a minute.
Got to get all the voices.
Are you talking to my live streams, or are you talking to conventions? Don't you knock my audience, man.
I mean,
all 5 of them will take it personally.
I was trying to be accommodating, but
Larry is a dear friend and supporter, and unfortunately, he lives in North Dakota, so he can't support your campaign. But I guarantee you, he'll at some point he'll ask some sort of question that will make us scratch our heads. So,
yay, Larry!
Solid. I'll take
one. So you're a political novice when it comes to political activism in that regard, like from at the level of being involved in a party.
That, yes, I've always had heavy criticism for parties in general, mostly because it's their name next to everything that gets done.
Yeah, I like to go to parties. I just don't like to be part of parties.
It's good.
I really don't like going to parties either. So
if I got invited to those kinds of parties, yeah.
So have you always been well, how old are you, Steve?
I'm 37.
You want people to call you Steve or Steven or what?
Steven, but either's fine. If Steve's either, you can go with that. I'm a humble man. I don't really.
It's so hard to say Steven over Steve.
Yeah, Steve's fine. That works.
So how old are you?
So I'm 37. I will be 38 at the time. I'm duly elected.
Okay. And Haley, I know we're not supposed to ask, but what did you just like graduate 2 years ago or something? Because I'm looking at you sitting next to him, and
thank you. I will be 27 in 3 weeks.
I wasn't too far off. Way to punch up, man. Good job.
It's because I'm smart.
It is.
I was talking about him. You're like way out of his.
Well, what do I have in common with 27-year-old men? Nothing.
Nothing. No.
Nothing.
Can you find a 27-year-old man?
Can I find one?
Emphasis on man, babe.
On man, not on the.
Yeah, I would sooner kill myself, but okay.
No, well, let's not say that on my live stream ever again. Thank you.
Yeah, no, cancel culture is really just.
Yeah, this is going down in flames right now. So,
man.
Okay, age disparities are exactly that. That's what women marry older because they know that they're going to get the money sooner. That's how it.
Well, I mean, like statistically speaking, women tend to select across and up.
Right.
And so, like they, generally speaking, your average woman doesn't want to date somebody who makes less money than they are, who is shorter than they are, who is lower in the societal hierarchy than they are. So, granted, I don't think anybody does so much, but men are known to select across and down.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
I'm just repeating things that I've read by people with a whole bunch of different abbreviations next to their names and spiffy degrees that I don't hold. So
Yeah.
I assume they must know something I don't.
So before this completely derails into marital counseling, Haley, how do you feel about him running? Excuse me, campaigning, because he doesn't run for anything.
From anything.
From anything, yeah.
I am supportive. I mean, he texted me before he yelled his name out. And I was there anyway. I was there just watching, which, I mean, was horribly boring because I couldn't vote on anything. And, you know, you got to be there to support. But I'm in it.
And you're committed to the values?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we had a lot of conversations about that. She's originally from Colorado, and I drove her up here, and we had a lot of talks about that. And you know, as much as there is a very strong conservative voice in Colorado,
that's been taken over.
Yeah, their education system has been just steamrolled.
Oh, that was calculated. There's a documentary. I cannot remember the name of it, but there's a documentary out there that shows how the leftist takeover of Colorado was orchestrated by outside forces. And I'm not talking like QAnon crap, because I can't stand the QAnon crap, but
yeah.
No, I assume you mean like Bloomberg and like the usual like ubiquitous funding sources that are kind of like rewriting national American politics.
Yeah, they were literally funding people moving into Colorado with leftist ideology. And then immediately, as soon as were there long enough to qualify as a resident,
right,
launching them into politics at the grassroots level, so that they were, in urban areas and maybe larger small cities, so that they were getting name recognition, so that they could say they had some experience and that they had run for office in Colorado and held office in Colorado and whatnot, moved it on. And it was very much a calculated move.
And it worked.
Yeah, no, it did.
Oh yeah.
She was quite onto the left end of the spectrum when we met. And there were a lot of very long arguments and conversations, and I mean arguments in the reasoned sense, not in the like fighty sense, about like, why.
I think she could take you. So
no, I mean like, well, and she held her own, and what she mentioned was missing from her walk in that regard was a sound, honest argument that wasn't politically charged, that was just honest, and that like there is a real strong thread to actual science. There's a real strong thread to actual political philosophy, and there's a really strong trend in history of the way other governments and other organizations have done their thing, and what Jefferson and Adams and the whole crew, Franklin, what they produced was what was a truly incredible hybrid that took advantage of many of the strengths and about as few as humanly possible of the weaknesses of those historical governmental forms. And a lot of the propaganda, especially when you spoon feed it to children, it's really hard to get them off it. And it's not necessarily that they don't possess the ability to think for themselves, but they generally base their scope off of the information that they're given. And so if you give them a specific information set, expecting them to think outside of it is very complicated, especially for someone young and so on and so forth. So,
and that's what we're starting to see here, is the same thing that I grew up in. So,
well, unfortunately, though, Minnesota's been at it longer than they've been at. It's been a longer process, a slower process for Minnesota. But
yeah,
you go back to in the history of the state of Minnesota, the DFL is actually the love child of two very Marxist organizations in the late 1800s, early 1900s, in the history of the Minnesota as a state, and they merged. And so you should do a deep dive. I've been actually thinking about doing a kind of little commentary on the history of the DFL in Minnesota for that reason, because it's never been a traditional pro-American party. They've always been very Marxist, very anti-republic.
If you do a series on that, I will rep that. I will rep that series hard.
Yeah.
That does sound good.
Yeah, because I didn't know that, because to be honest with you, I don't know where I would even find a politically honest DFL history. I would expect their history to be written by the propagandists, not by people being honest. So
yeah, I'm a nerd, so just keep
it's not
throwing that out there.
It's not a bad thing.
So you're pretty traditionally conservative, definitely socially conservative, and I would imagine pretty economically conservative based on a little bit of the conversation as we were coming into this tonight. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, we've known each other for a while. It's not like, not a long time, but for over the last couple of years, we've been at a lot of the same events and rallies, protests and whatnot together, different capacities, but stood side by side in some, in a couple of pretty hairy situations, no fault of our own, but by poor leadership on the part of senior law enforcement in the state of Minnesota and political power players. But
I met you, in fact, while Antifa was forming a classical Roman shield wall, with
marching down the street by the governor's mansion
with battle commands and the whole nine.
Yeah, which I have video of.
Yeah,
and that was a complete setup. So we've known each other for a couple of years now, and I want people. If it seems like we're interacting like we know each other, it's because this isn't the first time we've ever conversed, and Steve's actually been a participant in the audience of a couple of live streams over the last couple of months. So, when you called me the other day and said, "So I did a thing," I'm like, I was expecting like, "No, I don't know a bondsman."
Yeah.
I don't. I can't help you out on this one, bro. I can't put the 10% down. So, but you said like, "No, I did a thing," and I'm like, "Yeah, you'd be better off going to jail." So, you were pretty passionate about that on the phone the other day, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's get you on. Let's get you on air. Let's talk about this." And you were really shocked that you walk into this convention and like nobody's stepping up. Nobody wanted to do it.
To be fair, there's a lot of shell shock going on. Like this is, and I'm in full honesty. Like
I think that's more than fair. I don't think it's shell shock. I think it's people. Minnesota Republicans are lazy.
I don't know if I'd call them lazy. I think
he's already campaigning.
I think that I'm just a very honest man. I'm very, very honest, largely will fall. And I don't know that I would call it laziness. I would call it being kind of beaten down. You lose often enough and you kind of feel like a loser. That's just how all things work with, human behavior and your drive and stuff like that. If you get beaten enough, it's hard to be enthusiastic and, go at it. Though, in fairness, there were a number of people who maybe weren't ready to put their face out there and say, "Yeah, I'll do it. Let's go." There were many passionate people there that weren't there previously. A lot of the holdovers from the previous district were very excited because there were big numbers there to them, and so on and so forth. So that was good. A number of them who had fled the riots. I heard lots of stories about how I had to, I'd send my wife and my kids up to the second floor bedroom. I had to sit in my living room with a shotgun every night because I didn't know what was going to happen. Buildings are on fire. There's no response on 911. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like there was a couple of those guys that showed up to specifically just our district and not including people who would be within the umbrella of, say, CD2, which is a much larger area. So, which granted, it does take into account some rural areas. So those folks probably aren't going to be directly familiar with the riots per se, but they're definitely running to the suburbs. And this stuff, violence and unchecked crime spreads like fire. And
people need to understand too, when you bring up the riots, when you're talking about, being, what'd you say, Edina? No.
Egan?
I'm an Egan.
Egan. We're not talking about real close to downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah, no, Egan is quite south. Egan's like 25 minutes southish.
Yeah.
So
in Twin Cities traffic, that's a long drive. That's
certainly can be
close enough to get the violence, though. That's
right, but that's exact. It's really not that close. That's just how bad it was.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, like
they ran out of things to burn, and so they started moving out.
Cars to steal.
Well, there's like a I'm blanking on the theories and the names for it, but essentially, the more dense a particular thing is in a given space, it tends to want to spread. And so, especially if there's lots of criminals where you are, then the competition for crime, which sounds just obnoxious, but the competition for crime, I assume, is high. And why would you want to rob people in a neighborhood where everyone's prepared to be robbed because they're getting robbed a bunch, when you could go rob a neighborhood that's not prepared for it? It's just a better deal for them.
Right. So an area that has been an enclave of kind of left-leaning Democrats has seen a shift now, where the longtime residents are now not just kind of going into a ballot booth and ready to pull that lever for whatever Democrat candidates there. They're now starting to rethink their position. And all of a sudden you have this brand new, never before existing Senate district, Senate District 52. And you're stepping into this role saying, okay, I'll step up. And
sorry,
they didn't.
Hush, baby girl.
They didn't. Yeah, sounds like a baby girl.
She's very pretty,
I'm sure. But they vetted you, even though you're the only one, they still wanted to vet you that same day.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is so something that man, I'm going to try to be as quick with this as I possibly can. So when you have new people to a political organization, they're not going to know the rules. They're not going to understand all the ins and outs and how things are usually done. And of course, you mentioned that you were a BPOU chair for a bit, so you remember
I was the vice chair for the county party. Yeah,
vice chair. So a lot of people had to be walked through the process. So because there was no senatorial candidate, at least on offer, before I mentioned that I was willing to throw my hat in the ring, they needed to amend the rules so they could consider me. Because you're supposed to, if you plan on running, because our political system isn't really designed for the sort of rushy plight that it's currently in. Things are happening very fast in our country, and our government is intended for gridlock. The slowness of the state activity in our country is it's a feature. It's not a bug. It's supposed to be that way. And so you're supposed to inform within 10 plus days or something like that of convention, so you can be viewed and vetted, et cetera, beforehand. And so everybody was very eager because they had heard me speak. They thought that I might be good for the role. So when they said, "Hey, would you guys all like to amend the rules to consider?" They all said yes. There was just maybe like 2 nays in a room of 110 people. And hey, I respect the 2 people that said no. Even if it was 4 or 5 or half of them, that's better than everybody just going, yes, like that it's better that way. So that was cool. And yes, they took me up. I spoke to a committee. They asked me about my values. They asked me where I stand on particular issues. I gave the best answers that I could to those questions. And the seeking committee found me to be properly within Republican values. And they announced that they would recommend me as a Senate candidate, and would recommend that the committee there assembled to endorse me as their candidate to run for Senate in newly minted District 52.
This is I just want you to know you're in the presence of greatness. I'm not even kidding. My good friend Carrie Smith from Deprogrammed, literally one of the kindest, most gentle souls I have ever met in my life, who has a massive platform, is paying attention. So be on your best behavior, Stephen.
I'll do the best that I can, but I'm only ever going to be myself.
Carrie is phenomenal, and if she's paying attention, she will. She's sharp. So if she asks a question, I'm going to put it up there right away.
Oh, please do.
So, you're not a newcomer to the conservative mindset. You're not a newcomer to being disgusted with the direction that the country has been headed. But like you were saying, you never wanted to get involved before. It was never your thing. And so we have a series of events that take place over the last, let's just be honest, 2 years. I mean, and we don't mention the thing that caused the thing, by the way, by name.
We don't mention the thing that caused the thing.
Yeah. We don't mention that thing by name. We call it the Koof, and I got that from Carrie a while ago. So for the last couple of years, we've had this thing going on, and it's really kind of sent states like Minnesota, especially into a tailspin of going out of control in one direction where people are like, oh, please, big brother, take care of me. Commissar Walls, please step in and control, give us direction for how to live our lives here in the state of Marxisota. And at the same time, we have kind of a burgeoning awakening, which is how I met Carrie, because Carrie went through this burgeoning awakening, and her story. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, by the way, I've had her on a couple of times, but my very first live TC and Friends Monday Night Musings, Carrie came on and we talked a little bit more about her journey from being a woke leftist to now being a classical. In my mind, I define her that way. I don't care. I just define her. She's has very classically liberal perspectives. Going, I don't recognize things anymore. I don't want to be part of this where you say it's okay to punch a Nazi, or call somebody a Nazi and then justify punching them because they're a Nazi, because you defined them that way. To now actively, which is why the title of her program is deprogrammed, seeing people walk both from the far left and the far right and kind of walk into this place of, we can be united in wanting to save this republic in that sense with shared values. And that's where you found yourself now over the last, which seems like 2 years, seems like so long. But it isn't. You've had a rapid shift in the last 2 years from being kind of, screw it, let it all burn, to I can do something, to now being politically active. That's got to be a bit of a culture shock for you.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say I've always been I started at the sort of like screw it, let it all burn. But I'm a big fan of not making an assumption about how things are going to go until I have more perfect, if not perfect, intelligence on how they're currently going. And so I'm always kind of an eternal learner in that way. I need to know more and more and more and more, because the more I know, the better I can address whatever's in front of me. And I guess as far as like my political history goes, I was raised by Democrats. My stepfather and my mother are both staunch Democrats. Granted, they are members of the rare breed of pro-gun, pro-liberty Democrats, which is a real head spinner for people who aren't from Minnesota. People who aren't from Minnesota are used to Democrats that are either like full-blown not American at all, or they probably should be Republicans, but they don't want to associate. And in the state of Minnesota, we have pro-liberty, pro-gun Democrats, which is just wild. How those dots get connected, I have no idea. But at the end of the day, I grew up in a very pro-gun family. My stepfather, despite voting blue, generally speaking, consistently says you don't need an excuse to go shooting. If you want to go exercise your right, go exercise your right. He likes guns. He believes in liberty and all that other fun stuff. I think there's a lot of shame being used to keep people in their proper little buckets. But for me, I learned what I learned as a kid from my parents, and then as I was then subjected to the world, that changed a lot of my views. And I discovered that there were many things that, while the eternal belief of the Democrat that the government can help is really just a theoretical possibility, in reality, the government almost always makes things worse. And I watched the government fail time and time again at almost every task set before it. And not to say that it doesn't accomplish anything at all. It just accomplishes so little at such a high cost. It's kind of not worth it. And this belief that you can just kind of, as you mentioned, please tread harder. Please come take care of me, be my nanny. It's so attractive to many people who don't really feel like dealing with those problems themselves. But in reality, you run from those problems. Eventually, they're going to catch up to you, because the government, they don't actually want to slow those problems down. They generate votes. Come on. And so and so as I started to move away from that in my young adult life, and then I started to see, when I was younger, the whole Democrats are communist thing was almost like a conspiracy theory. And now they're just publicly like, we love communism, ring in the CCP, China is the way. Like, and it's like, come on, guys, really? And so it became this very open thing. And I was like, wait, I'm not okay with communism. I don't know what the hell else you guys are talking about. Like, I am somewhat a fan of the idea of a two-party system. I don't think we should have uniparty rule at all, because there are different viewpoints on different things. But the current way things are set up, the Democrats are like the establishment Democrats do not hold to the ideals of this nation. And they are just taking every capability that each office has and just break it in half. They're using all of the force of office that they're allowed to just ruin any vestiges of individual liberty throughout. And that of course has to stop. And I saw that little bit by little bit. And as soon as it started, as soon as the media began a complete railroad, and we started seeing almost nothing but propaganda, then there was the incidents that started, of course, the pandemic and all that other fun stuff.
The thing that started the thing.
Sorry. As soon as the thing happened, I became very, very aware that this was the train's going to basically go rails or not. And I was like, well, okay, first things first. If things are going to go so sideways, I'm screwed. I want the necessary tools to protect my family. I want the necessary supplies to make sure that we can eat. And I want the necessary ammunition to ensure that in the case everything goes crazy, we're good. I accomplished those things, and the world hasn't burned entirely down yet, and I'm happy with that. So now that I have that breathing room, now I have no choice. While there's still a chance to speak, I must speak before other people have to act.
Right, absolutely. I want to point out that Carrie said hail chat. So she said hail chat. Mega Bat said hail TC. I think that is the proper response to my friend Larry says Second Amendment, pro-life, education, and judicial reform, medication freedom sure sound good, but does he own a motorcycle?
I do not know. And I admit that is a failing. I absolutely should have been on my purchase a motorcycle as a young man phase. I missed that, and I take responsibility for that. I
never owned a motorcycle. I preferred to jump out of perfectly good airplanes while I was in the military. So I've done,
that's a thing.
I've done more. I've gone faster without a motorcycle than most people on motorcycles has ever gone. So show us a dog that barked.
Sure.
Hope.
Come here, baby.
Dog's name is Hope?
Yeah, she is.
Come here, baby. Oh, she's a good girl.
Aw. Hello, Hope.
You're such a good
Carrie, there you go. Carrie she does dog sitting. So, and Carrie's dog Tiger makes frequent appearances on her show.
Yeah, no, this is I work from home, and she's very familiar with what's going on right now. That's why she's so comfortable.
Cool. Yes, I could tell.
Throughout the day, she just buries her head and gets her neck scratches.
So, as you're ministering to the needs of Hope there, tell me what conversation took place at the nominating convention that you were at that really blew your mind, because you know, most people don't go to the Senate first. Most people go to the House of Representatives. And you were and you were having a conversation with an old timer there, and he told you what a senator's supposed to do. And you and I don't want to say had a debate about that, but he said something to you that really sunk in, and you appreciated it.
Oh yeah, so in the seeking committee, because while I do consider myself a bit of an amateur enjoyer of philosophy, I was blessed with the necessary faculties to read hard philosophy without a guide. So you can see the history of Friedrich Nietzsche back there, and some of the pragmatists, which are American philosophers, and they're very interesting concepts, very complex. I won't bore you with them here, but I consider myself at least reasonably well versed in those things. And so I didn't know what the day-to-day job of a senator would look like. I never looked that up because I never really considered joining politics. I always wanted to just stay in the market, because the market is, generally speaking, where people produce the most value. That being said, in the seeking committee, I was having a conversation about with the committee members about my views on different things, and I made the I guess we'll say assertion that if I don't particularly agree with a thing, but my constituency wants that thing, I don't get to tell them no. I was wrong in that. And now to certain degrees, of course, because there's always, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. And I was corrected because by one of the gentlemen on the committee who said the way that our founders designed the Senate, it was the Senate's job to, at least to an extent, save the people from themselves, which we had a little bit of a dithering on how certain terms and concepts were used. And the way that they intended that to be looked at was essentially that the people put forth their interests, their desires to the House, who pens the law, who drafts it. And the House just says, what would you like? All right, cool, let's go. And they write it down, they try to put a law together, and then they send it up. Now, they're going to be sending it up to me, or rather to the Senate. And the Senate's going to look at that law and go, okay, is this going to come back to bite us? Does this walk over anything important? Is this going to infringe at all? If so, send it back with a bunch of red underlines and say, guys, we need to clean this up. We need to put something a little smoother together, send it back up, and we'll see what we can do with it. And that's sort of like the general task of that particular office, which is a very interesting conversation to me, because I didn't expect to think of it that way. And it's certainly not intended, as you might fear, and as it honestly kind of sounds like it's a sort of like a nannying thing. But the concept that some of the higher ideas, the more complex philosophy, and where constitutional law may intersect with certain things, is usually not like that. That's usually not the average person's game. Not everybody goes to constitutional law classes and passes the bar or something. So like those kinds of things are not necessarily commonly known and commonly discussed or argued. And hey, maybe they should be, right? But they're not. And so if you suggest law that maybe you might not be familiar with all the little interactions that go with it, you may accidentally pen law that's kind of dangerous. And we've seen it intentionally passed, but it's very dangerous. And so it requires a body to argue.
Right. To that end, we had this conversation about the conversation I had with Duke Powell.
Yeah.
And I shared that conversation with you, and you said you had watched the whole thing, and it kind of opened your eyes to, hey, one, he had the temerity to come on knowing that I wasn't going to just side with him across the board on it. But built into the system of checks and balances is a subset of checks and balances where the Senate and the House check and balance each other. And I took a little bit of pause when this individual that you spoke with there at the convention said, well, it's to save the people from themselves. I think I understood the intent and the content of what he was getting at, but I think ultimately it's for me, when I look at it, it's less about the Senate saving the people from themselves, but should be to save the people from legislators who think they're doing what's in the best interest of the people. The problem that I think we've had, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, I know you will. I know you well enough to know you would. There we are. Is that they have worked very hard at working with each other to compromise. And I mentioned this to you in our phone call the other day.
Please continue.
You had said, or I had told you about an individual who was at another nominating convention, and one of the people speaking was like, well, a good job of a leader is they have to learn how to compromise. And I'm over here going, no, let's put the brakes on compromising. Because whenever a Republican talks about compromising, or a conservative, if you will, talks about compromising, what actually ends up happening is the left doesn't compromise.
Red flag.
Exactly, red flag.
Flag on play.
Yeah, that would be yellow, I think. Football, I don't know. I don't watch sports anymore.
Same.
The left continues to move further to the left, and the right has to move further to the left to compromise. But the right never moves further to the right because, you don't want to be seen as far right. That's exactly what it is. and it's
You're right.
kind of the same thing. It's a repetition. Then within the Senate working to check the House and the House working to check the Senate before a bill even gets passed, they have all these subcommittees and these subcommittee hearings, and they have a meeting of the whole, and then you've got Democrats and you got Republicans, and they're all working together. And by the time you're done, you end up with a bill that's 4,000 pages long. You got to read it in 2 hours and vote on it.
2 hours, yeah.
And the people who end up getting screwed are the very people that the Senate's allegedly supposed to be protecting from their own bad decisions.
Right.
And and so what ends up happening is, oh, hey, just trust us. This is for your good. And so we've lost sight of that. And as you've seen with one particular individual in the House of Representatives right now, who's standing alone in some respects,
Right.
you're getting ready to walk into a situation, dare I say, as senator, when you win, where you may end up in the cold, because you might go in there and be you, and those of us who know you know you're not going to pull punches. You're gonna call things for what they are, and that can make doing the job of a senator incredibly difficult. Are you prepared for that? And I warned you the other day on the phone. I just want people to understand this. When you called me, I said, well, how much truth do you want? The Republican mainstream isn't going to back a guy like you if you continue to be who you are, because they want a compromiser.
I disagree.
Well, that's good, but it's all right that you're younger than me, and it's okay for you to be wrong.
Yeah, I disagree, and I disagree generally speaking, because any political party, if it fits the definition of what you might describe as a political party, needs some level of popularity and some level of vote. And so if it's really unpopular, it dies. And so generally speaking, this is, at least in my humble opinion, and I do hope to be humble. In my humble opinion, this is not a problem of existing senators. It's a problem of the will of the people. And that's going to feed whomever is a senator or whoever. Like, I'm not campaigning to the existing senators. And as far as I can tell, and hey, I would love to be wrong. If the MNGOP is watching, please prove me wrong. But the last two candidates
that's what I want to get at. I'm not
zero help.
I'm not saying that your district. I'm not saying your district won't support you. I'm saying that the power brokers in the MNGOP, as you said, we've already watched them abandon support for one particular individual because he doesn't say the right things for them.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day,
his views are right, but he doesn't compromise enough. And I know you well enough to know you're not going to compromise. So
here's the thing though. You get not there. There's a, I don't want to say. Have you ever heard of the concept of Irish diplomacy?
That's a new one on me. I might know the concept, but maybe never heard of it that way.
It's the science of being able to tell somebody to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip. There is a science to saying no to people. And
correct.
Sometimes it doesn't have to be no, go yourself. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It can be something much more polite, and it can be something much more workable that you can really get to the bottom of. Right now, I do agree that the blanket assumption of compromise for the sake of passing bills is a flawed approach. It's a heavily flawed approach, and in fairness, I don't entirely know how I'm supposed to handle that because I don't know all the details I'm going to need until I get there. And those are kept under heavy lock and key. They're in, back rooms, places where people are going to discuss things. I don't know how I'm going to handle those kinds of problems until I approach them. That being said, there is, of course, a through line, and that through line is you don't betray your principles. And if your principles dictate you say no a lot, then you say no a lot. And I'm happy to say no. I'm not trying to get elected so I can get a new circle of friends. I like my friends just fine like they are. Now, as far as you know,
I like all 4 of my friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say all 1 of you guys are great. So yeah, that's kind of the thing is sometimes you got to say no, and you do have to stand up for your principles. But there's a way to do that without necessarily making enemies out of people. You can be decent about it, and quite often, a lot of these things are really just a little bit of creativity away from being really, really workable. And I don't mean workable as in accepting things that betray your principles to get things to work. I mean workable as in not betraying your principles and still finding a way to move things through. Like, for example, there's a clause that I've been told about, and hey, I may have been told wrong, but as I understand it, there's a clause in Minnesota legislature that says no money will be spent or allocated to funding of birth costs for like the needy. If you need to go have a baby, they're for any kind of like fund to support that. You cannot give any money to that unless you're also going to vote money to abortion. That's what I've been told by a Minnesota legislator. I won't name names, but he may have explained that improperly to me. But that was what I was told. I don't know how I'm going to confront that problem. I need more intelligence. So I can find a way through that issue. But at the end of the day, a lot of people, and this is the reason why I never really wanted to go into politics was because it's generally speaking it's a pen for society to put the people who will go after power tooth and nail. You got to put them there, otherwise they'll do terrible things. You got to find a place to put these people, and so we put them in power, and we put them in seats of power that are specially designed. So even though they want to do stupid, ugly, immoral things, they're not able to hurt a ton of people to do it, at least most of the time. If the other systems work correctly, you should be able to address those issues. Unfortunately, the American people have not acted fast enough, and many of these institutions are overrun. The ones that are supposed to check each other, they're not doing their job. They're just kind of sitting back going, Minnesota Freedom Fund, huh? Sounds cool. Y'all are going to donate this year, right? Like that's not how it's supposed to go.
I had an individual on last Friday, Buck Johnson from the Counterflow podcast, and he's been talking about a concept that's been getting a lot of traction here lately, which is the idea of an elite. And
yes,
and everybody's always talking about, oh, we got to get rid of the elite. We got to get rid of the elite. And what on his show this week, what Buck talked about was the elite aren't the problem. The issue is who the elite are. And what we have right now in the oligarchy that is the elite of the United States, and even here in the state of Minnesota, is we have a weak, and Buck didn't mention Minnesota, but we have a weak, inbred, sycophantic, incestuous elite, that they're elite just because they've always been elite. And what we need is an actual elite who deserve that ideal of being elite, that they're intellectuals, they're logical, they're reasonable, they're moral. And by moral, we would refer to that as a form of objective morality, not subjective cultural morality, but an actual objective external morality. And that, I think, is what the biggest problem is with compromise now. Is it always takes you away from an objective morality. It takes you away from an objective intelligence, and moves you to a watered down elite status where, as long as you play the game, you can be part of the elite. And right. and the elite shouldn't be that way. I'm just going for a record to see how many times I can use the word elite in a 5-minute span of a monologue.
The word of the day is elite, everyone. Mark that down. I mean, like,
thank you.
What you're really discussing is, you're discussing what you're discussing, but what this discussion is taking the form of is a discourse on the corruption of hierarchy. We're a hierarchical species. We, generally speaking, try to determine a good. We put whoever is best at achieving that good at the top, and then everybody tries to be like them, and then our mating selection peels off on that basis. And it's supposed to produce the best people. But right, you're not wrong. So like generally speaking, when hierarchy corrupts, it isn't the good that go to the top; it's the huge problem. You're absolutely right about that. You have hierarchy that truly they do not hold the necessary values, the necessary decency, the kindness, the reason to be there. They're there for reasons unrelated to their legitimate, we'll say, or reasons unrelated to their offered position in that hierarchy.
Which is why we saw guys like Kurt Dowd here in the state of Minnesota this last year got all bent out of shape when he got told he couldn't be a lobbyist and a member of the House of Representatives at the same time.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a riot. That's an absolute riot. I didn't. Oh man,
Sarah, even though she lives in the Owatonna area, says, "I'm going to put in one of those mail-in votes for you, Stephen." No, Sarah, let's not put that out there in public.
if you want to support the campaign, just donate. It's the best thing you can do. Like there's no rules against who I can and can't really take donations for. There are rules, but they're very complicated. And in this forum, it's perfectly reasonable. I'll have to throw a PayPal link up on my Twitter. I'm in the process of building a website that'll be up soon. When it is, my domain is Stephen, STPHEN, the number 4 Senate.com. Pretty easy. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where
don't vote, donate.
Yeah. If you're not in the district, voting's illegal. Don't do that. We're voting integrity is very important. We have to get that done. And so, admittedly, there has been discussion about losing by the rules, but this is not the format for that discussion. That's a different discussion. But yeah, no, the corruption of our hierarchy is incredibly important. It's arguably one of the biggest topics of our time right now, because people are trying to figure out, hey, how do I make the world better? Well, all the people that are supposed to be making it better are a bunch of corrupt, less than ideal individuals. And so,
yes,
generally speaking, that doesn't help anybody.
Well, and that's what I keep pushing back on with people. Everyone's like, "Oh, we've got to take back Washington D.C. We've got to take back the White House. We've got to take back the House and the Senate at the federal level." I'm like, "No, we don't. That's like literally a lost cause. If you think that's going to change anything for you, then you're missing the point. We have to take our school boards back. We have to take our city councils back. We have to take our county commissions back. I mean, here in Minnesota, we have to take our soil and water conservation districts back." And
you're not wrong. That's a good point.
It's just, and I jokingly refer to, if you elect your dog catcher, elect a constitutionally minded republic dedicated dog catcher. I'd rather see the dog catcher out there, asking the dog how he feels about the Bill of Rights before he puts him in a snare and hauls him away to put him to sleep. But I mean, that's where we have to go, is this local level. And granted, you're not solely local because you are going to be dealing with state level issues, but this is where change happens, is at the state level. And one of the individuals that I really enjoy reading and listening to is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Tom Woods. And he talks about the power of the states to perform nullification of federal laws when those laws run afoul of the Constitution. And so many people are like, "Oh, that's why we fought the American Civil War, is that nullification just can't happen. It's a fairy tale." And we've seen it since the Civil War play out time and time and time again, where at the local level, whether it be at state, county, even some sheriffs, if you know Sheriff Mack is at all, Sheriff Mack told the BATF and the federal government back when they passed the Brady bill into law that we're not enforcing this for you.
Nice.
And we're not going to do this. And we're not going to let you come in here and enforce it either. And they sued the federal government and won.
Oh yeah, well, and honestly, not to derail you terribly, but that needs to get more press. That needs to get more. I mean, a lot of things do, but that definitely needs to get more press. That it is impressive truly mind-blowing. The number of times we, the people, sue the absolute bolts off of the government and win, but nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it because
It happens.
and the
It
reason
happens far more. It happens far more than people understand.
it does. And if people knew how often they did that, the level of confidence in the kind of just insane regime we have going on would drop like a rock faster than it is now. Sorry.
But Steve, we've got to be honest though too. For the vast majority of people who, and I brought up an individual, and I'm just going to throw his name out there in my district. I don't even know what district I am anymore. It used to be District 31, and now 31 is up in the city somewhere. I don't know how you can be in Southeast Minnesota and your district is so completely changed that now the district you used to be in has been relocated to where my friend Walt is, who's up in your area.
Right.
But my state representative has been at it for so long. He's completely lost. He lives here, but he's completely lost touch. And I was telling you the story about a local business here who said they were going to be defiant to the governor's edicts during the Koof restrictions.
Remember that. Yeah.
And Greg David's response to this local business was, you're just going to have to buckle under or knuckle under and suck it up and move on because there's nothing we can do for you. And
unacceptable.
And right, that's precisely unacceptable. But that's what happens with a lot of these people is they get in these positions and they just stop fighting for the people.
Right. And like my point about being beaten down still stands. So I get it. I'm not going to tear somebody completely apart, but that specific instance and anything that stems from it is patently unacceptable. It is, what's the Supreme Court phrase for that? It's repugnant to the notion of liberty.
You're talking about Marbury versus Madison. Is
that where that phrase is from?
Any law that runs afoul of the Constitution is no law, and it's repugnant to the Constitution. And that's there's just this reality that once people get into office, I don't even like that term, but they get into office and they become officials, and now they're your leaders, and they do everything they can in their power to stay in those positions because we're doing this for you. Don't you understand that we have to campaign for 4 years out of the 4 years that we're in office, or we have to campaign for the 2 years out of the 2 years that we're in office. We have to raise money for all that time so that we can continue to stay in office, so that we can continue to campaign, so that we can continue to raise money, so that we can continue to represent you. And the problem is you spend all of your time not representing me, and all you're doing is campaigning, and people feel at a loss.
Oh, and I agree with that. And I don't want to trigger anyone, but I am running to serve.
Oh, hell, you're out of it.
So there's a difference. There's a big difference. And I know a lot of people feel like maybe they are, quote, fit to lead, and so they run. I think that there may be some connective concepts, but in general, what we expect of our elected officials is absolutely further into the field that you would describe as service and less into the field you might describe as leadership. It is an arbitrary authority. An individual's election to office is essentially the patent consent of the governed. It's saying, yes, we agree this person can make decisions in our stead. We find them to be reasonable. Go. And that seems to be getting a lot kind of forgotten. And to a degree, I understand why, because it's hard to look at what's going on and feel like you have any choice in it, feeling like your vote matters at all. And in reality, I like to remind people, like I do this out in person, like before I ever joined a BPOU. I remind people the several states have incredible authority. The only chain that is placed, the only shackles that are left upon the states is through funding. And as long as your state will refuse to be dependent upon federal funding, your state is basically its own little country. John Adams was quoted as saying, Massachusetts is my country, because It's basically true. It's the people where you're from. They're nice big chunks of land, and people have developed cultures and so on and so forth in those places. And that's what the sort of political system in those areas is designed to sort of preserve.
Well, let's use the state of Minnesota as an example right now. We're looking at a nearly $10 billion budget surplus.
Yep.
But yet we cave into everything the Biden administration says.
Well, that's because our current governor wishes that this was China.
Right, but all of that aside, it's the same thing. Because we get so much money from the federal government, we have to continue. Like, wait a minute, we have a $10 billion surplus. We really need the federal government to continue to give us money?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. No,
right, precisely.
Whatever. Issue the first, give it away. Give it away. Give it directly back to the people that sent it. If there's a surplus,
you mean refund it to the people you stripped it from in the first place?
Right,
That would be good.
Yeah.
Haley hasn't hardly said a word since we brought the dog on earlier, and now she's like, "Yeah, give me my money back."
Let me tell you. So part of the reason, I don't know if I should mention this, but we're not legally married. I would love to be, because our taxes.
Thin Earth.
I cannot marry the man I love because of taxes.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to afford to live. The taxes that would be taken out of her job, if whatever, would be so enormous. The rent that we pay just on this apartment alone is insane. Yeah. That it literally would wreck us. There's just no two ways around it, and we've discussed it broadly. which also brings up the question about whether or not the state should be involved in issuing what we call marriage. Oh yeah, marriage license. Personally, I'm not a firm believer that the U.S. government and a state, federal, local, whatever
has the authority to determine who's married and who's not.
Has the authority to tell me to whom I am married in the eyes of God. That's not for any stretch of the imagination within their authority. And so, I mean, we're both we're both people of faith, and we wear our rings, and we do everything that you would do, including being faithful to each other. And that's best we can really do at the moment. I wish the government didn't want to get in the way, but they are. And until such a time as we can maintain being afloat as a family without that, that's what we kind of got to do to survive. So we do it.
Well, and it would be nice.
But isn't that? But listen, but think about the irony of what Haley just said. The guilt that comes in with that, especially like you said, you're people of faith, and it's Good Friday.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'll be straight with you. I'm not a fan.
But just think about the reality of that, of how far the church has fallen, the Western church has fallen, that you could go and have a marriage ceremony in a church, and your church would still tell you need to go get a license from the state.
Yeah, more or less, yeah. I don't see how that's reasonable, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, and I get why the government does it, because generally speaking, married couples are productive. So let's start pulling every dime we can. Unfortunately, if you pull every dime you can from every other part of your system, you have an enormous problem, because people start running out of dimes.
I just want everybody in the audience to think about that for a minute. The entire premise is how bad state overreach has become when you have churches that will not perform marriages for people unless they have a license from the state that says it's okay for you to be married. And churches are on board with that. And that's a whole different conversation.
I was going to say, we would have, there are many hours
with other people about how we've gotten to that point.
Right.
But so I'm gonna do this, and it's been a little over an hour now, and we've had some people have been watching for pretty much the whole time, except for Larry, who was late, and I think Sarah, who came in late. Sarah, you are fired as my token Hispanic chick from Owatonna. And I laugh because she called herself that a couple of streams ago. So
that's spectacular.
I want to kind of come at it from this. What are you going to do, not just for Senate District SD52, but what's going to make you a good senator, a good representative, a good servant of the people when it comes to watching out for people during, say, executive orders that overstep during emergent? There again, you watch my conversation with Duke.
I did.
What are you going to do that's going to make you valuable to all of Minnesota in that situation? How are you going to lead in that respect?
Well, first of all, sticking to principle is key. And honestly, the ability to say no is important. Now, I understand it's important to note that my power as one senator is relatively small. So there's only so much I can do.
Takes one voice.
It does, right, but it is still one voice, and one voice is better than no voices at all. Now, the other thing is
kind of loud.
I can also speak very compellingly if you haven't noticed. Also, I made that word up right now. I can.
She just busted you out on live stream. You are kind of loud.
I am. That's my job. What else am I going to do? Well, right, whatever. You dress for the job you want, right? So, the point I'm making is I have a gift for at least some levels of persuasion. I also have a gift for being principled, so I'm not dishonest with it. But I'm very, very, very gifted at persuading people, and generally speaking, I can employ that to the greatest effect I'm capable. To that end, I can say no all day long. I'm happy to mark no on anything. I don't care if somebody's unhappy with me. If they want to push, they can try. I wouldn't recommend it. So generally speaking, I can absolutely tell these people they're wrong. I can make the most compelling orations in the chamber on the floor as I possibly can. And I can make at least the will of the people that I know, the will of the people from my district, known loud and clear. And then at least if the rest of them decide that, corruption's the order of the day and, outswamp me, I guess, then at least I can say that I made the stand that I needed to. And I can do my best to encourage and promote further discussion and further, further eyes on the problem. Because people have a really hard time doing bad things when lots of people are directly watching them. And I'm happy to bring that to bear.
No, not really anymore. I mean, let's just look at the current trend where we have to pass bills like in places like Florida to keep people from inculcating our children with yeah.
You ain't wrong. I mean, no, I mean, it's
so they're not really uncomfortable doing bad things in the full light of day now. But there again, that's because for the most part, especially here in the United States, the church has lost its effectiveness. Would you be willing? Go ahead.
I have one more piece to make on that, and that is the reason.
No, I don't want to hear it.
The reason why most people, even if these are an exception, are loath to do ill or evil in the full view of others isn't because they are fearful people. It's because that full view usually produces full consequences. There's a cost to be paid for all things, both good and evil. And that cost can be very expensive if you piss enough people off. And so the more people that get to see something and see it for what it truly is, if they are moved to act, can create a great deal of change, far more than just one senator can. But it gives me a place that I can project my voice and it will be heard with credibility and not just as some guy on the internet who wants to make a point and be loud. So, generally speaking, that gives me far more weight to bring issues like, hey, do you see what they plan on doing to your kids? We need to talk about it. Hey, look at what just came across my desk. Let's talk about it. Right. And when elected, I am more than happy to sit down on live streams with all kinds of people in the state of Minnesota because it's a conversation that needs to happen. We need to make our government representative again.
Hey, stop. I get first dibs.
Hey, man, you're the first. Your show's the first and the only. Nobody knows who I am. Hell, maybe they don't want to know, but they're going to find out.
Well, after this, you may not get elected. Did you see whose show he was on?
I'm just here being myself. I'd be myself in front of anybody else. So people can hate if they want to hate, but that's a bad trend to employ, personally.
Oh, trust me, I'm well aware. Would you be willing to say right now that if a bill comes up that's clearly a violation of not just the Constitution of the state of Minnesota, but is repugnant to the Constitution of our republic, and everybody's putting pressure on you to vote for it because it's the right thing to do, will you call people out by name publicly?
I guess it depends on how you mean, because it's kind of vague. At the end of the day, if there's pressure,
You read a bill, and I'm
Right.
I'm gonna put this to you as straight as I can because you know who I am.
oh, of course. I mean, well, here,
The
I'll be
bill is
honest. I'll be honest.
clearly
I'm not going to.
just flies in the very face of the principles of our republic. But everybody keeps coming across and saying, no, this is the best thing for us. We need this, and we'll work around all the other issues, but we got to get this done right now. It's for the good of the people. And you're getting pressure from inside your own party to vote for this. Will you call that out and say, no, I will not support this, and here are the people pushing me to support it? Will you do that?
Yes.
All right.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of my job, and I
heard
feel
it
like
here, ladies and gentlemen.
it's one of those like foregone conclusion kind of things, in my opinion.
Well, right. I know you well enough to know that if I said it the way I did the second time, that you would say, "Oh yeah, I can do that," because I know how you are. Would you be willing to say that if you find after the fact you find yourself going, "Hey, I shouldn't have voted that way," would you step up publicly and say, "I screwed up"?
I don't see why I wouldn't.
Okay.
So here,
the only reason I ask is because there are a lot of people that backtrack, and I know you well enough to know that that's not who you are. But people need to start hearing this.
Well, here's an anecdote.
It's no different. It's no different than that video I sent you of a particular individual who may or may not be running for governor right now, who was all glad handing and happy to meet people until somebody asked him a question about never again.
Right.
And then all of a sudden turned into an absolute Frankenstein.
All right. Well, I mean, that's a party platform. If I said no to that, I'd look like an idiot. But I mean, when I went to the CD2 convention, I spilled coffee, and I take butter with my coffee. I know that makes me weird, but that's how it is.
That's bullet coffee, bro.
I spilled buttered coffee on my brand new tie. Rather than take my tie off and shove it down my swatch pocket, or maybe just leave it in the car, I wore it all day. Not because I was stupid or felt like I just couldn't be there without a tie, but because it was a statement that I made a mistake. Mistakes happen. I accidentally spilled a drop of something. I'm happy to admit it. Now, hey, in the interest of not lighting up the entire MNGOP CD2, nobody asked. It was very polite of them. But if they had, the first thing that would come out of my mouth is, well, when I make mistakes, I admit them. Because what else are you going to do? I'm not getting elected so I can lie. People are already doing a great job of that.
And just for the interest of full disclosure, too, that's the only tie that Steve owns. So,
thanks. I kind of thought that was going to stay there. I don't know. I'm a working dude. I don't own like 36 suits or nothing.
I literally don't have a single tie or a suit to my name. Like, somebody's like, "You need to run for office." I'm like, I don't have a suit.
Right. No, I mean, like, seriously, Doug Willits, the last candidate for CD2, was like, "Oh, and you're going to need to go buy a suit and tie." And I'm like, yeah.
I'm like, can I just show up in jeans?
I was this close. I was going to do it too.
I feel like the grunt style t-shirt, jeans, and sports jacket is a look.
I'd be the guy that would show up in the Sub Pop t-shirt and a flannel, and a Pearl Jam hat.
Right.
We have here. Let me know if you get any donations from Hawaii. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yo, what's good, man?
A whole different country right there.
Whole different
country.
Yo, get Tulsi to pass constitutional carry for you guys. Come on.
Sarah once again chimes in. She said, "You just gained a supporter right here."
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to need all the help I
can. She's an Owatonna, so make sure that you let's not send her a ballot. So, hey, I've kept you on here for almost an hour and 20 minutes now. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
As your race starts to heat up, you want to reach out to me and let me know, and we'll see if we can have you on again to talk a little bit about it. And if you can get your opponent, if you could reach out to your opponent, I would love to have you both on.
Well, there's an idea.
I mean, he don't want none of this, but like, I'm happy if he's willing. Like, listen, you never interrupt your
you don't want none of this. Like, I'm serious. I'd love to have your opponent on, Both of you at the same time. I keep telling people that, and nobody's ever like, yeah, I just don't have time for a platform like yours. I'm like, okay, thanks.
You need to stop asking people like that. They are not worthy of a space on your platform. That's inexcusable. That's rude. It's downright rude.
Not for the
Well, the few Republican candidates for governor have pretty much ignored me, and for attorney general. So they're all kind of like, oh, like I'm not big enough. So
A hometown guy who's definitely served his local populace. Got 1,250 followers on YouTube, and they ain't got time for you, huh? In my opinion,
I don't know it.
In my uneducated opinion, I'll even say that because who the hell am I, right? I'm nobody. But like, in my uneducated opinion, I would imagine walking over people like you is a pretty big mistake for people who want votes and want to be taken seriously, especially considering Minnesota's kind of a small town state. We're not like California or New York. We're not, enormous.
Well, we're a state of 18-year-old cooks and rocks and cows.
Man, there's so much attached to all of that. I am man, that is
18-year-old cooks with guns. Excuse me.
I
gotta go churn the butter.
And make me a sandwich.
Make the boy dinner.
Spaghetti, but yeah.
So thank you for inviting me as well. And
No, thanks for coming on. I wanted people to see that there was some beauty and brains behind this.
Happy Easter,
Thank
everybody.
heavens for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. Have a good one.
Yes, you too.
Steve, I really appreciate your time. I can't imagine that it will be a boring race with you in it.
Absolutely not. I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, Jesus, God forbid I lose. If I do, at least I can make it entertaining.
Well, there are going to be a lot of people pulling for you, and so I would encourage you to share this out there with your party, with your local party there in your district. I said the same thing to Walt when I had him on, and if there's anything I can do to help you along with this, you let me know.
Absolutely, dude. Every step of the way. I'm happy to do more of these whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you go out there and let's flip Minnesota. Let's make it red.
Absolutely.
True red, not like this wishy-washy, mushed up kind of purplish looking red either, but an actual red.
It is unfortunate that the pro-liberty party in America has the same color as the commies. I don't know how I feel about that, but like, I don't get to make that choice. Like,
colors is colors.
Vote red. Vote red. That's all I can say. What has the Democrat done for you lately? Vote red.
Don't ask that. A lot of people might answer too, honestly. Hey man, you go eat your spaghetti. I'm gonna do a close and push this out. So
Roger that, man.
You have a great one. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Man, that's my line.
Nah, I appreciate anybody who takes time for me. So this small little platform in Southeast Minnesota. You take care, man.
You too, brother. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you stopping in and watching this. This is literally the thing that I've been saying for years, not just the last 2 years, not just since the Koof, not just since all the Koof restrictions and everything came into place. But thanks for listening, because I've been telling people it starts local. Sarah's watching. She's been part of the United Patriots for Accountability over in Owatonna, working on getting the main organizers for that group, by the way, on for one of my TC's Monday night musings. We want to see local involvement. We want there to be people running at the local level, taking runs at office, school board, city council, county commission, House and Senate districts at the local level, because that's where change happens. That's how we affect change. I'm not saying don't pay attention to the White House. I'm not saying don't pay attention to the federal House and the federal Senate, but we affect change at the local level. And when we affect the change at the local level, we can do things like nullification. And if you don't know what nullification is, please go out and read Tom Woods' book, Nullification. and understand it is not just a fairy tale. It's a reality. If you get a strong state that's willing to stand up to the strong federal state, they'll win. They'll win. I'm not talking about a civil war. I'm talking about just standing up and saying we're not enforcing that rule. We're not enforcing that law. We're not enforcing that mandate. We see that playing out in Florida. We see that playing out in other places. It's playing out to some degree in places like Texas. It's just incredibly important for us to pay attention and for us to take action. So I want to add here at the end of this, not because it isn't important, but before I do my last little pitch for 22-0, everything that I am using for equipment tonight is the result of friends of the show. People who have donated a brand new camera, lighting, a brand new computer system, the microphone that you can see has all come from people who have taken an interest in me. And it means so much to me that there are people out there that are doing it. And one of the reasons why it has touched my heart is because of how much I have lost. I'm not going to lie. The last year has been hell. And it hasn't gotten any easier. And I'm at the point where I can't quit after what I've sacrificed. And to have people who have stepped up and done the things that they have done, it means a lot. So if you're ever in the mood to go, hey, who can I help? I'm over here with this platform going, hey, I don't want to just do something or to receive something. I'm willing to say, look, just buy my stuff. I want you to get something out of it. I want to be able to benefit you in a way that you've benefited me. So coffee helps me. The merchandise helps me. It keeps me going. It makes up to some degree for what I've lost. And I'm thankful for the viewers. I'm thankful for the support. I'm thankful for the encouragement. I'm thankful for the love. I'm thankful for the pushback when I need it, and for the challenges. And remember as well, anything that you do buy, some of that is going to go to the 22-0 guys. And Juan from Red American Media and Kim and his wife who make the merchandise. And these are really cool. I don't know if you guys can see this at all. I tried to put something in there so that it was highlight. These mason jars are amazing. I don't care if you use them to store flour or drink out of them. I like to drink out of the mason jars. I don't know, for some reason I had a grandmother that used mason jars. She would keep them in her freezer, and then she would pour her beer into them on a hot summer night and drink out of them. So that's where that came from for me. I'm starting a frequent buyers program for the coffee. So if you're interested in any of the merchandise, interested in any of the coffee, it is some of the best coffee you will ever have. Not even going to lie. It blows the best stuff you've ever had right out of the water. So let me know. You can find Steven on Twitter at, I think it's Lowell for, boy, let me. I'm looking. I wasn't ready for this. Steven at Steven for Senate on Twitter. I do not believe that he has a Facebook presence. And Stephen got off, and then he comments, "You guys were so good to me, and TC was a magnificent host." Oh, thanks, Stephen. I can't wait to bring the full force of Western philosophy and values to the rot gouging our Senate. Exactly. You're right, Judson. It is piecemeal secession. So, oh, thanks, Sarah. We are here for you, TC. Absolutely agree. You have sacrificed too much to give up. That's very true. It wouldn't be worth anything now if I did. I do have my Saturday Minnesota sit rep coming up tomorrow, where I'm going to be talking about different news stories. I'm going to have some really interesting ones coming up tomorrow. I'll be doing that as a live stream sometime in the afternoon, early evening. And then Monday night, I have my TC and Friends Monday Night Musings. This week, I have my friend, let me see here. If I remember correctly, it's Eric coming on. Yeah. My friend Eric Anderson from up by northern Minnesota is going to be coming on to talk about the duty to defy on the part of the church. And so he's coming on to have that conversation with us about where the church has failed and what it needs to do to defy. If you do come in and you are on Facebook, or not on Facebook, but have an account on YouTube, super chats are great because those go straight to the bottom line. It kind of helps fund the operation of a channel like this. So anyway, once again, 22-0 challenge going on to the end of the month. I want to be able to send a minimum of $300 to those guys. So you guys have until the last day of the month to order coffee or merchandise, and I will ship it to you the day your payment comes in. Vets deserve better treatment, much better treatment than what they're getting, especially the guys that have been in war zones and who have given up a good portion of their life to fight in wars oftentimes that none of us would have chosen. Get involved like Stephen is. Make a difference in your local neighborhood like people like Sarah are. And then point people to activity at that political level where they are able to stand for their principles, and to remind the tyrants that, as always, sic semper tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-30. Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Room Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Room Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Room Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.